In today's news, BVI's curfew is in full effect.
Accessing the emergency room amid COVID-19.
Local shoppers disregard social distancing measures.
Outpatient pharmacy services operation, making sure you have essential medication amid COVID-19.
BVI businesses begin layoffs, and the Federation of Syndicates confirms its first 2 cases of COVID-19. These and more stories when 284 News returns.
Is business slow, cash flow down, hosting an upcoming event? We can help. Advertise with 284 Media and take your business or event to the next level by enhancing your present marketing and messaging strategies. Allow our team of experts to create a personalized ad that sets your business apart from all the rest. This could be your business or event. So, what are you waiting for? Contact our marketing team at 284media at cctbvi.com. Advertising with us works.
When you need to stay connected with friends and families at home or abroad, the best choice for you is Freedom. CCT Freedom. With the lowest rates in the market, our Freedom plan gives you unlimited calls and texting. Plus, our Freedom One package includes 10 gigabits of super fast, unlimited LTE data and unlimited calls to the BVI, USA, USVI, Canada, Puerto Rico, and UK lines. Why pay for overages when you can enjoy CCT Freedom? Stop by at one of our stores today and speak with one of our representatives to find out more about our CCT Freedom packages.
Welcome everybody. It's Thursday, March 26, 2020. I'm Ron Grant.
And I am Javon Wilson. Now, Ron, we are living in unprecedented times.
Absolutely.
I think for over the last few weeks, I think coronavirus has taken over our newscast, but rightfully so. This is a pandemic that is currently rocking the world, and unfortunately, in the BVI yesterday, we were able to confirm 2 cases here. So I'm sure a lot of persons are in a frenzy. But what we see on social media a lot recently is a split somewhat. A lot of persons have complimented the government and the governor of the Virgin Islands, who collectively are responsible for security in the British Virgin Islands, for shutting things down just to make sure that the virus is now contained in the BVI somewhat. But we see some persons really speaking out against it, and it really surprised me.
It is a surprise. You would think that in such a crisis, when the government has taken initiatives to make sure that the people are safe, that people from all walks of life, all levels of economic sustainability would understand the impact and the precautions. But it's very interesting, Jovan, what we've seen transcend throughout the few hours that since the announcement. We see, as you said, persons who are in support, and we also see persons who are not in support. But what's interesting is that you would think that persons have the ability to discern and to pick sense, as we would say, out of nonsense, and also put business affiliations aside in the effort of safety. I think at the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of our personal agendas are ruled, and because of that, we see persons coming out and making statements that would want to seem to encourage persons to not abide by the rules.
Misleading.
And then, misleading, absolutely, and then want to take it back. But it doesn't necessarily work like that.
It doesn't.
Law and order, as we know, is what really secures us in this territory. And I would like to employ the beautiful people of the British Virgin Islands to continue to support the government, whether you agree with them or not. But at the end of the day, it is simply for the betterment of all of us.
And again, we want to contain the virus. Ron, the sad part about this virus is the fact that it does not discriminate.
Oh, absolutely.
Nobody's immune to this virus, the rich nor the poor. And so it's very important that we all pay attention to what's going on.
Yes.
I mean, this is nothing new only to the BVI. We look across the world, larger nations, and we see the impact on not just the human capital, but the economies across the world. This could be crippling for us if we don't keep this under control. So again, I just want to compliment and say kudos to the government for everything that we've been seeing so far, and encourage and implore each and every one of our viewers and the rest of the residents here to follow those rules. Topping our newscast today, last night, the Premier of the Virgin Islands, the Premier of the Virgin Islands, Honorable Andrew A. Foy, announced a new curfew following the confirmation of those 2 cases, COVID-19, here in the territory. Now, under the amended Curfew Act 2017, it took effect from yesterday, Wednesday. 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. Now, viewers, the same protocol follows for today, Thursday, prohibiting anyone outside beyond the hours of 8 p.m. nightly. Now, Ron, there's a lot of confusion to begin with this curfew. Let's speak specifically to the term essential workers, because those are the only persons who are truly exempted from.
And I think it's important that we
that
clarify
curfew.
exactly who are essential workers.
Definitely, and according to the labor code, viewers, essential services means the police service, prison service, water and sewage service, fire and rescue services, electricity generation and distribution services, telecommunication services, which of course includes the media, us here, healthcare providers, transportation services, and port services. So we just wanted to clarify
Indeed.
that a lot of questions have been circulating as to who will be allowed outside. And it's very important to
That you
note,
know,
too,
yeah.
that passes needs to be issued.
Correct, yes. Passes do need to be issued for those particular persons. And there are different states as it pertains to essential workers. Let's take, for example, in the case of a hurricane,
Right.
that would be a little bit different. Some of the persons that you see listed or not listed as essential workers in this instance, because it's a pandemic, would have probably been listed if it were a hurricane. So the
Right.
situations kind of differ
Yeah.
sometimes, but in this case, these are the persons that are essential workers.
Definitely unprecedented, and it has been amended to meet these new conditions. Sorry. Now, the new curfew follows an initial restriction that saw businesses only being able to operate within the hours again of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. daily. So on Monday evening, we took to the streets to see if persons were really complying with the rules. Let's watch. Viewers, on Sunday, March 21st, the government of the Virgin Islands, in response to the novel coronavirus, announced strict new measures that saw the Minister of Health, first of all, prohibiting non-essential gatherings with persons 20 or more. This also resulted in businesses, services, and recreational facilities being closed by 8 p.m. nightly and reopening by 6 a.m. if necessary. Tonight, we are here at the Tortola Pier Park, what is considered an entertainment hub for most in the British Virgin Islands, also a home for a lot of businesses across the British Virgin Islands. But as we pan across, you can see many of the businesses being closed, a clear indication that here at the Tortola Pier Park, many of them are paying heed to the new rules that are set in place by the government of the Virgin Islands. We have surveilled almost pretty much the entire Tortola Pier Park. All of the businesses are closed, including bars. And again, this is definitely a spot where we gather after work, some of us at night, to have a drink. As we pan across Tortola Pier Park, you can see for yourself, all businesses are closed. Many of them were actually closed before the restricted time, which is 8 p.m. We'll continue to bring you live updates across the British Virgin Islands in light of the novel coronavirus and how it's affecting us here in the British Virgin Islands. Now, that was on Monday evening. Now, while most businesses seems to be complying, it appears that a few might be defiant in this case, Ron. And the Premier has a very strong message for those persons. Let's watch.
I want to commend the people of the Virgin Islands because the majority of them are adhering to the measures. But there are some who are not adhering to the measures. And I want you to know that I continue to say this because it's very important that when you continue to ignore the measures that have been put in place, you're not doing it to spite the government. You're not doing it to spite your, the leader of the opposition or myself. You're doing it endangering your own family, endangering your children, endangering your mother, your father, your sister, your wife. We have to adhere to the measures. One person sent me a picture of a party here someday with a little baby, and this was only a few days ago. And to the gathering, there was at least about 70 persons there, and they were passing around the baby. Those things I want to tell you publicly cannot be. You are endangering the child. You're endangering the entire persons that attend. There's a quota for the mass gathering. I want persons to know that we cannot behave normal in an abnormal situation.
Words there from our Honorable Premier. Now, many are asking, what will we do in instances where businesses or persons, yes, disregard the new rules in place? And the police commissioner, Mr. Michael Matthews, said, quote,
If persons or businesses violate the new restrictions, they commit offenses under the Public Health Act, and this carries a fine of up to $1,000 and or 6 months imprisonment. He further said that specific sanctions will range from officers warning business owners and using such discretion as available to them to reporting for offenses and, quote, closure of some businesses by the police. Such scenarios may also have impact on an individual's ability to continue to trade in terms of future license grants. Now, Ron, I just want to piggyback a bit there. A
Sure.
license, a lot of persons still think again, this is a joke somewhat. You know, a lot of persons
Unfortunately.
are not taking heed to what's going on. We look across the world. I know in New York, there was a business belonging to the Caribbean, owned by Caribbean people, that was shut down in the Bronx simply because they disregarded the law of the day, and that person cannot reapply for a license. So taking really strict draconian
I think
measures,
we have to.
but for a great good.
Most definitely we have to. And on to another story. Chief Operations Officer of the BVI Health Services Authority, Mrs. Kidorine Malone-Smith, has said that only patients seeking emergency services at the Dr. D. Orlando Smith Hospital will be allowed entry into the third floor ER parking lot of the facility. Mrs. Malone-Smith said these new protocols are being put in place in response to COVID-19 and the pandemic. The Chief Operations Officer said, and I quote, "Persons arriving at the barrier will be instructed to remain in their vehicle. If their situation is an emergency, they will be allowed entry. If the situation is not an emergency, they will not be allowed to enter and will be instructed to call the medical hotline at 852-7650 for further guidance." Mrs. Malone further said persons with emergency matters will be required to check in at the booth, where they will be screened and then taken into the emergency room or the triage area. She added, "I also want to take this opportunity to discourage persons presenting with COVID-19 related injuries to refrain from seeking answers at our front lobby. Persons will not be permitted to enter the building. The public is advised to contact the hotline, of course, all COVID-19 related inquiries and non-emergency health information, and they will be guided accordingly with best practice information and advice. The community is also advised of additional changes." Some of the facts, ladies and gentlemen, you want to take note of this as it pertains to the state-owned largest and only public hospital in the territory. No visitor patient will be able to circulate throughout the hospital unless authorized. All outpatient speech therapy services have been postponed until further notice. Additionally, the management of COVID-19 is fluid, which will result in continuous changes to operation. We are encouraging telemedicine as much as possible. Now, for those persons who may not be aware as to what telemedicine is, that is simply being given a diagnosis over the phone via communication and online technology or whatever sorts without actually being face-to-face with someone. "We have a list of our most vulnerable clients," she said, "that we will remain in contact with, but persons with medical questions and non-emergency concerns are encouraged again to call the hotline." Now, in addition to that, outpatient pharmacy services, the public is notified of the following procedures for dropping off and picking up prescriptions. Now, this is very important as we have a number of persons who are still at risk. Prescription drop-offs should be done between 8:30 a.m. to 12 noon outside of the lobby of the Dr. D. Orlando Smith Hospital. Pickup will be done by appointment only. For pharmacy inquiries, please call 852-7556. Now, this is important, Jovan, because we have a lot of persons in our community who are already ill. They already have predisposed conditions, whether the elderly, somebody might be asthmatic or diabetes, suffering from diabetes, and we want to make sure that persons throughout this period are still getting their insulin, still getting their medication, and I think persons should be adhering for the betterment of themselves to make sure that them and their loved ones are still in place of the medication that they so need. It's very important.
That's, you know, the unfortunate thing about this crisis is the fact that it really puts a strain on our healthcare services.
Yes, it does.
And I'm very happy to see Ms. Malone-Smith clarifying there what persons can do. Again, viewers, your prescription, you cannot just drop your prescription and sit around and wait on it. You have to drop it off, wait until it's filled, and then, you'll be called to pick up your medication.
All right,
viewers,
still ahead. The Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, they confirmed their first 2 cases of COVID-19. A lot more on the international scene as it pertains to the fight of COVID-19. You don't want to miss it. All this and more from 284 News.
How may I assist you? Yes. You want top of power?
You want top of power?
Join the prepaid party with CCT and enjoy more affordable data plans, more top-up promotions, more savings with hero bundles, and more value for your money each and every Tuesday with Top Up Turn Up Tuesday. Visit a CCT store today or anywhere CCT Top Up is sold and top up your phone.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. You want top of power?
Viewers, welcome back to 284 News. Now, Ron, while we're currently allowed to move around somewhat a little bit, that is of yesterday and today, tomorrow evening, 8 p.m., is going to be a little bit different. From Friday, March 27th at 8 p.m., the territory will be under a mandatory 24-hour lockdown for 6 days. And as you can imagine, many residents are now in a scurry trying to shop their last-minute essentials. Now, the trouble with that is, viewers, it's very, very dangerous. Just yesterday, we heard of stories where the parking lots of these supermarkets were packed to capacity. And Ron, while we understand the growing pressure and concerns, especially now that we will be restricted to our homes for just about 6 days, it's very clear that a lot of us are not taking this as serious as we need to take it. Now, a few things we want to go over here. First of all, we've been hearing the term social distancing. Now, for those of you who do not know, first of all, we've been disregarding it, whether callously or not, but a lot of us don't really truly understand what it means. Social distancing, according to CDC, is remaining out of congregate settings, avoiding mass gatherings, and maintaining a distance of approximately 6 feet or 2 meters from other people. That clearly is not the position here in the British Virgin Islands. And again, we do understand the pressures. I feel like we're all in this same boat, so we all want to make sure that we're taking the proactive measures to protect ourselves.
Well, one of the things, Jovan, that people, believe it or not, don't realize is a lot of the behaviors that we display during times of crisis simply comes from anxiety, a lot of paranoia. I sat down with Dr. Michael Turnbull earlier today, and he was able to outline some stuff that really brought it into perspective, where there is simply a high level of social anxiety. And in these times, persons should really be cognizant of them putting themselves at even greater risk. So I don't think amidst the anxiety and the paranoia, of course, we're not privy to this. This is something that we experienced in 2017 as it pertains to panic shopping and hysteria. But we do want to encourage persons to be vigilant and not practice this kind of behavior.
There's a double risk here. You know, you're infecting yourself and possibly harming the persons around you. So we have to be very, very careful with that. And again, viewers, it doesn't matter. I mean, I've been in supermarkets. I've been at the pharmacy recently. It doesn't matter wherever I go. Up to today, we were in the supermarkets, just looking around and see what's going on, and you see persons still not paying heed to the tapes. Persons are still stepping outside of it.
Comes from the fact that people they see the masses doing it, so they feel left out, and they feel as though they're not doing something right, or they're not doing precautions just because everybody's running to the gas
he's getting away with it, so I can do it.
Everybody's running to the supermarkets. They feel as though they are not taking heed, but it's absolutely opposite, ladies and gentlemen.
Viewers, we need to understand that as a population, it is a fact that if we do not contain the spread of this virus, 2 persons have been confirmed already in the territory. If we do not try our best to contain it and practice these social distancing measures, it will overwhelm our resources and it will put a strain on the territory. Now, soon enough, you'll be seeing a graph on the screen, and I mean, this is something that we cannot reiterate enough. When you look at this graph, viewers, you see the implications of the COVID-19 virus. Now, what happens in that red area is us disregarding the social distancing measures and seeing an extreme increase in cases, which again will do nothing but overwhelm the healthcare system in the British Virgin Islands. What experts across the world are encouraging us to do is ensure that we distance ourselves, that we practice those basic sanitization measures, wash our hands, sanitize our hands, cough into our elbows. If you're sick, self-quarantine, stay away from others. And what that does is it stretches out the extremity of the symptoms and the amount of persons who are infected at the same time. So again, please remember, every time you interact with people, the virus spreads, even persons without symptoms. And I think this is
That's
one of the
important.
dilemmas we're
Very
facing.
important.
Before you heard, if somebody coughs into your face or those droplets land on, your body, or if you touch those droplets on a metal surface, that you would become infected. Now, there are persons who are asymptomatic, and
Yes.
they're not showing symptoms 4 to 6 days, even after being infected with the virus. So we have to be very careful with that. Thankfully, though, viewers, a lot of the major supermarkets, ever since yesterday, and a lot of businesses across the territory have implemented the social distancing measures again. We're going to go to a quick video that shows just this. Coming to you live from Rotong Wholesale in the British Virgin Islands from the Passy location. Now, ever since the news broke yesterday, Premier of the Virgin Islands confirming 2 cases of the dreaded coronavirus within the territory. A lot of persons have been in a scurry ever since to shop those last-minute essentials. As a result of the news yesterday, a lot of persons rushed into supermarkets. Yesterday, the location here had to eventually shut their doors closed. Today, we see different measures being implemented, of course, in regards to safety to ensure that persons are social distancing. If you look around on the floor, you'll see these tapes. They're an indication of persons being able to stand 6 feet away from each other, which is the recommendation by CDC International. And supermarkets across the territory, businesses across the territory are adopting the same measures. It still seems somewhat a bit crowded in here. Initially, we heard there are 20 persons or less that will be allowed into the supermarkets. We see quite a number of persons in here, possibly way over the allotted amount. But viewers, this is right where we're going to continue to surveil across the territory here on 284 Media. Our viewers, we are now here at Walmart. Now, one thing that they've done differently is outside, even before you enter into the supermarket, they have a sink with hand soap to ensure that all customers entering the building, they must wash and sanitize their hands. So strict measures here at Walmart. But again, against the Premier orders, 20 or more persons, we see quite a lot more people here in the supermarket, and we look around and I'm not sure if all the persons here are honoring the 6 feet social distancing measure. Nevertheless, it's still somewhat of a controlled environment as we continue to monitor the updates on the ground here in the BVI. Thankfully, viewers, a lot of our business owners are taking this into great consideration, ensuring that within their establishment, those safety measures are in place, of course, to minimize the spread of this virus here in the territory.
And one of the things, Jovan, they have been reiterating, which I wish persons would listen to, is that they're basically saying, don't worry, we have enough food supply, both on the government's end and the businesses. They have been reassuring that here in the BVI, we have enough food supply. So
but one of the things too, Ron, I recognized today, and I mentioned in the video, is the fact that even though those measures are now in place, people are still not listening, People are still not listening. I think the Premier said about 20 persons within a supermarket at the same time. I cannot recall seeing 20 persons in any supermarket today. So it's really important that we understand that this is not a joke. It's very serious, and we need to be very serious about it.
On to our next story. Our brothers and sisters over in Bastyr, St. Kitts, the same day that we confirmed 2 cases, they too, the Junior Minister of Health and Social Development, Ms. Wendy Phipps, confirmed that 2 samples sent overseas for testing have returned positive for the novel coronavirus. In making the announcement yesterday, March 25th, the minister disclosed that the patients are a 57-year-old female and a 21-year-old male, both of whom live in the same household. During her public address, Minister Phipps explained that both of the positive individuals are Kittian nationals with recent travel histories to New York, a jurisdiction, she noted, which up until March 24th, 2020 had recorded some 23,230 confirmed cases of COVID-19. The announcement of the confirmation comes one day after Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris announced the $120 million EC stimulus package, along with other measures to prevent an economic fallout from the virus. Among the measures implemented is the closing of the borders to commercial flights. Our government is advised that both patients arrived in the Federation on March 18th, 2020, were tested on March 20th, 2020, and have been in home quarantine ever since their return to the Federation. Both patients and their families have been duly noted, she advised. Minister Phipps also assured that efforts are now underway to prevent the possibility of a community and local transmission. Among the key measures being taken by the Ministry of Health, they are: 1. In-depth contact tracking in an effort to correctly assess the persons with whom both patients would have interacted. The second, quarantine and monitoring of the contacts of the patients in order to ensure that they are handled as per WHO-approved protocols. And third, based on the data collected from contact tracking, containment of the infection would be executed in order to restrict spread of infection in the local community. The government assured that this is not a time of panic and fear. This is something we've been hearing a lot, Jovan. This is not the time to panic and fear, but to simply hold fast and continue with the measures that have been put in place.
We certainly need everyone thinking clearly and consciously because we need our collective power to ensure that we step forward on the best foot. Now, Ron, I love the fact that you highlighted that in St. Kitts and Nevis, there's a stimulus package already in place, even with 2 COVID-19 patients being discovered just yesterday. I found what persons are doing across the region, in the Caribbean and across the world, is they're pre-planning, they're being proactive.
Correct.
And I know a lot of persons here in the BVI are still somewhat uncomfortable with the fact that we are still revising whatever that stimulus package is.
Yeah. I think it's unsettling for many persons, especially when it comes to the small business community here in the BVI, and particularly hospitality. There is no confidence as it pertains to the support on government's end. You've been hearing conversations yet, but unlike our countries across the region where they have properly outlined what the stimulus package
even
looks
before
like.
it hits.
Correct. What it looks like, where it will be going, who's going to be the main beneficiaries. We here have still not identified that as yet, and I think for a lot of residents, it is unsettling.
It is, definitely, and we want to speak to that a little bit now. As layoffs continue to mount at small businesses and in the hospitality industry, residents across the territory are now left to swim in a sea of uncertainty in light of this new coronavirus. Now, many hotels, including the major ones, have begun their first wave of layoffs, some of them, Ron, company-wide.
Yes.
Now, however, we're seeing that the Minister of Labor, Honorable Whitley, he's speaking to provisions within the law that helps those companies somewhat. There's a provision that allows them, I should say, to terminate temporarily in unprecedented times like these. Now, viewers, the Labor Code states, if the termination is stated as temporary, no severance pay needs to be paid to the terminated employee at the time of termination. But viewers, this must be done under a few clear conditions. Now, firstly, if the re-employment date is more than 3 months, the employee can request severance pay at the date of termination. We also see that if an employee has indicated a date for re-employment but is unable to pay on or before that date, severance pay must be payable on the date agreed upon. And in the final scenario presented in the Labor Code, we see if no re-employment date was stated and that 3-month period has elapsed, the employee must be paid severance pay once the period has expired. So, Ron, a lot to go over here when we think about, again, this pandemic, this crisis. We used to say that's, grappling the world, but now here in the British Virgin Islands, we see the impact not only on our human capital, but we continue to see how it's starting to cripple the economy.
It is.
A lot of persons have already lost their jobs. Some have been laid off temporarily, but a lot of us are somewhat in a state of anxiety and fear due to the fact that this is an uncertain situation. We do not know how long this is going to last. And on top of that, we see, again, no stimulus package is in place.
And respectfully so, it is our bread and butter, and a lot of persons, of course, in making sure that they can provide, are duly concerned.
Definitely. In England, we see the government paying 80% of people's salaries. In Germany, 75%. Even in the United States of America, there is a check, a one-time check of $1,200. In Canada, $2,000 a month per household, I believe. And now we see in the region, St. Kitts and Nevis, $120 million stimulus package. So
but in the BVI, we hear crickets.
All right, viewers, we're going to have to wrap this up. There's a lot more to go around when it comes to the novel coronavirus. One of the good things I want to note before I go, though, even though we've been seeing some layoffs,
Yes.
some companies are actually hiring. I know, for example, Rotang Wholesale, they have hired some part-time workers. So what we're going to see is in certain
Yes,
industries, for example,
there is opportunity, yes.
there is some opportunity among the demand spike. So, viewers, that is it for today's news roundup. We would encourage you to follow us for daily updates on 284media.com and like us on Facebook at 284media, as well as 284BVI on Instagram, as well as Twitter. It was my pleasure. I'm Javon Wilson.
And I'm Ron Grant. We'll see you again tomorrow as we deliver your daily dose of local, regional, and international content. We're 284 News, your source for honest and impartial news right here on 284 Media. Happy Thursday, everybody. Have a terrific evening. Bye-bye.